So I'm recording this, but it's going to be a private link. And actually, I'm going to pin myself so that you guys, I like looking at all of you, but somebody complained about having the faces up on the recording. So even though the class, it's all the same people, I'm pinning myself so I will see um, the face on the recording. But it's required now to make the class accessible, but I'll be emailing you a link to the recording, and it will only be accessible to those in the class who get the link, okay? So you don't have to worry about, and I'm only going to be recording the lesson portion of the class. So I have a couple of announcements. First, I just want to remind you that next week is Labor Day, and so we won't be having any class. And then we'll resume the following Monday, and that lesson will be on fear, anxiety, and panic, which are really useful emotions. So also, I've been thinking that I'm going to slightly restructure the class a little bit because since we're squeezing so much into one class, like over the summer we had 2 classes a week, so we could do the lesson one day and sharing another day. But now that we're squeezing everything into one class and it's a full class and we usually have pretty good attendance, I'm going to get a little more tight about the timing structure of the class. And what I'm going to ask, because we have a lot of journal pages to get through and only so much time. So what I'm going to ask you all to do, and the other thing is, I just want to say, with art journaling anyway, and in particular dealing with emotions, there's going to be a lot of times when things are really coming up that we're wanting to process and share and dialogue about, and this is a support circle for that, but I don't want it to interfere with the basic kind of idea of the class, which is art journaling and sharing our journal pages. So what I'm going to ask you to do is limit your share of the journal page to 2 minutes or less. And I'm going to kind of keep an eye on the time. And if you get to 2 minutes, I'll just say time, and then you can know your time's up. And what I'd like you to do, and I'll model it today. I mean, I haven't been a very good model because I kind of tend to, but part of it is, I'm just wondering part of it is that I do share from, I find that the easiest way for me to convey the content sometime is by sharing things from my own personal life. So in that way, I haven't been the best model, but today when I share my journal page for today's lesson, I'll model how I want you to do that. And basically, I want you to take she usually has 2 questions, the 2 journal prompts, and just ask the question and answer it in a sentence or 2. So I'm going to ask you to get really concise. Of course, you can journal as much as you want with it, but for the class share for the journal page, I just want you to keep it really brief so that we can really get through everybody. And then when we're all done with that, I'm going to leave the end of class for more informal sharing and processing and talking, and just, if you just want to check in about things that got brought up for you and go more into depth or get feedback or just want an ear, then you can stick around for that. And if you don't want to stick around for that, then you can depart after the lesson. You can depart anytime in class, basically. But the three breaking points would be after the lesson, after the journal share, and then at the end if you want to stay on for the kind of, we'll call it like circle sharing time. Okay, does that sound like a good idea, you guys?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
It sure does.
Okay, great. All righty. So,
Carissa,
yeah, yeah.
I have, so I'm going to add to the time. I have a request
Okay.
or an idea. Is I get so much out of the meditation. Is it possible that we have a minute or two after the meditation to write our thoughts down
Sure.
rather than getting right back into
That's a
conversation?
really good idea, Patty. That's a really good idea.
Okay,
And then and that will also be our little like break. We'll take a
okay,
couple-minute break after the meditation to kind of, you know,
thank you.
yeah, that's a great idea. I love
I love that because I feel the same way.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it is kind of abrupt sometimes to jump right back in. Okay. All righty. So today's topic is shame and guilt, and Carla McLaren couples them together, which is kind of interesting. And she clarifies the difference, and she says that actually guilt is not truly an emotion, but that in our culture we have such an aversion to shame that we don't even own it or claim it or acknowledge it when we have it, and we refer to it as guilt instead of shame because shame is such a no-no. And that actually guilt is more of a factual statement, um, that you did something wrong, right? So you are either guilty or you're not guilty. So if I cheat on my taxes, I'm guilty. Now, shame can enter into that. So, shame, last week we dealt with anger, which is a violation of our boundary from the outside. And shame is a violation of our inner boundary by ourselves. So, healthy shame helps keep us in check, um, and keeps us honoring our inner truth and not betraying ourselves and doing the right thing, um, as we perceive it to be. So, healthy shame, you know, I love how she said it keeps us bright. It keeps us bright. And she says, shame is like this tidal wave that just kind of overtakes you. And it can either, she didn't say this, but this is my interpretation, that tidal wave can either cleanse you and wash you clear if you can admit and acknowledge um, what you are violating in yourself and make amends and make a correction, or it can go into a downward spiral. And I think it's when we aren't courageous enough to acknowledge and to admit to ourselves that we are violating our inner boundaries, that it can go into a spiral. And the other really big spiral thing, there's a secondary type of shame, which is shame that's imposed upon us by somebody else. And so this is not authentic shame. This is artificial shame that people use to try to control us, right? And we've probably all been shamed in our lives, especially our generation, maybe not so much in Autumn's generation, but in our generation, um, our parents just, that's how they controlled us. Um, this has been the imposed shame has been probably, my biggest issue, my biggest emotional challenge in life, because I'm a survivor of early childhood sexual abuse. And I was told, don't tell anyone or you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And that actually was more harmful to me than the actual act because it was so shaming. I hadn't realized that I was even participating in something that was bad. And then all of a sudden I'm like, um, so that's like artificial shame. I didn't do anything wrong, but I perceived that I did something wrong. So I have a couple of good examples of healthy shame. One is I remember I took my son to Kauai. He was moving there, and I went there with him to help him move. And we went to the beach, and he's like an expert ocean swimmer, surfer. And he decided that he was studying on an organic farm, and he decided that part of his kind of native immersion into being a Hawaii guy was that he was going to do his own fishing. And so he went and got some little hand spears or something, and we went down to the beach, and he swam way out, and he dove down, and he was going to get some fish. And he comes back swimming in, and he goes, "Mom, I just couldn't do it. Those fish are my friends." You know, I thought that was so cute. But like, that was his healthy shame. He didn't violate his internal boundaries that he had around honoring life. So that's kind of a sweet little one. I have another one, which is rather a confessional for me, that I actually experienced teaching this class last week, when I was talking about the different types of anger, including soft anger, which is like irritation and stuff like that. And I've noticed I've been doing this a lot lately. I've been cracking these jokes about my partner, but kind of putting him down. And I said, "Oh, my partner must have that." And I felt this like wave coming over me, like that wasn't cool, that wasn't right. And after class, I spent some time kind of admitting to myself how I've been doing that a lot lately, and that there's some issues there that I need to deal with. And it kept me in check, and it really, after I did that, I did feel brighter. And I have to say that this past week with my partner seems more clear and more, just more harmonious. And I think there's also been some differentiation on my part in separating out from his anger. So anyway, that was a case of healthy shame keeping me in check and realizing, and I think it was because I realized I was still recording, and I know I'm still recording now. There's something about, even though it's still the same people watching it, something about being recorded. If I don't feel good about everything I'm saying here on this recording, then I'm violating something in myself. So I hope that clarifies. Carla made this point, and I was thinking about this on my hike this morning, how our culture really is has such an aversion to healthy shame that we don't have enough of it. And when you look around at a lot of the behavior of people who just seem to act so selfishly, and they're not really modest, and they're not very kind a lot of times. And I think there's just been a lot of entitlement in our society, and people don't feel their shame. They don't, but it still is in there somewhere. So that's when it becomes toxic. Carla McLaren says there's no such thing as toxic shame, but I think toxic shame is valid, and I think it happens when it's been imposed upon you, or when you don't really deal with it or confront it. So that's my understanding of shame. And I'm going to show you guys what I did for my journal page. Does anybody have any questions before I move on? Okay.
I wanted to ask you to go over the guilt part a little bit more.
Oh, okay. So guilt she says is not an emotion, it's just a fact. So guilt, let me just get this up, Peggy. Sorry, I can't really do two things at once. I just want to get this up. So guilt, I was actually guilty last week of making a hurtful comment about my partner. Like, that's a fact. And I did feel shame about it because I was guilty. My son, when he went out fishing that day, he felt this shame about his intention to go kill the fish, but he didn't actually follow through and kill them, so he wasn't guilty. You know, the guilt is the guilt is the result of committing a violation against your own inner boundary. Does that make sense?
Well, I'll go, I haven't gone all the way through anger in the book. And I'm still processing anger and haven't been able to move on.
Yeah, you're a little behind us because you missed the first week. So what I would recommend is just take in today's lesson and just be with it. And especially since you have the book, you'll have a greater understanding. I mean, I'm just giving you a little short synopsis of what my takeaway is, but once you read her chapter on it, I think you'll get a much better understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I get feelings of guilt and I'm not guilty.
Okay, so why don't you
It's like a non-specific guilt.
So Peggy, bring that to our end of the class personal share, and we can talk about that some more.
Okay. Yeah.
All righty. So I decided to kind of do like a tidal wave background, and I have this iridescent metallic green that I'm using. And I'm going to pour a good amount. See, I'm pouring it right into my palette. You want to have enough paint for this. And then I'm also using an iridescent copper. These are both the Dr. Martin's calligraphy line of iridescent colors. So I'm basically doing two colors of the
Will you please make that bigger on your desktop?
I can't make this any bigger. That's as big as it goes, but I'm told you're able to do that on your end. Try playing around with your mouse, because sometimes your setting will have it.
If you go to view options, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It goes to 100% original size. I'm gonna try that and see.
Yeah, do that. Try that, Lizzie.
Got a little bigger.
Go to view options if you can find that and increase your size.
It's the little dots.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm using a pretty big brush. Look how much water I'm adding in. So this is the wave that is washing me clean. It's not turning into a spiral, right? I mean, if you wanted to explore what the spiraling is, you could go ahead and do that. I'm going to be doing some texture on this with the rubbing alcohol. And it's important when you do that, that your paint is wet. So I'm working rapidly. I'm having to add some water to my paint to kind of stretch it out, because look, even though I poured in all that paint, I used up every last drop. While it's still wet, I'm going to take my rubbing alcohol here, and I'm just going to pour a little bit into the cap, and I'm going to sprinkle it on, and it's going to create this nice little bubbly texture, kind of like water. That's kind of what I was thinking. And remember to don't paint your other color yet. You have to do this while this is still wet. So kind of do one color and one texture at a time. Don't try to paint the whole thing and then add your texture. So once that's down, I'm gonna kind of clean out my brush and I'm gonna fill in the rest with the copper. Notice how I'm putting some water from my brush into my palette, but I'm not really dipping the brush into the paint, because if I did that and dipped it back in the water, I'd lose all my pigment, right? So just kind of get the water into the palette, and I'm gonna fill this in. And you know, it's still a little wet on the edge of the wave, but I'm not worried about that because we're kind of working with boundaries, right? And so it's kind of a nice visual symbolism that it kind of leaked through. But you can think of this bronze as this whole topic. The shame and guilt is all solar plexus, personal power, energy. And so I was kind of using the bronze, you know, for that it's kind of the yellow orange, the belly solar plexus area. This is where the guilt and the shame resides, and this is where we work through it.
Carissa, quick question from Nancy about the paint.
Okay.
Did you say it was the Doc Martens iridescent inks or iridescent liquid watercolor?
Yeah, it's an ink. It's actually a calligraphy ink.
Okay, I've seen the inks, and so that it's an
Yeah,
ink.
this is a iridescent calligraphy ink. You know, they have all of these, well, they don't have the fluid watercolors back there, but all these inks, they have in the back of Art Essentials behind the sales desk. And, you know, you should go down there sometime and check it out and pick out some fun colors. So this one, I'm going to use my salt. You can use regular table salt if you want. I like the kosher salt because it's a little more coarse. And again, it has to be sprinkled on while the paint is still wet. And you'll get a really nice, really pretty, like sand kind of texture on it. So I'm gonna sprinkle that on. And with the salt, it's really important that you let it dry thoroughly. And it might take a while actually. And then you kind of rub it off because it actually gets embedded inside the paint. So let it totally dry and then you can rub it off when it's dry. So that's what I came up with. Yeah, you can see how this leaked through, but I kind of like that idea. I like, because it represents the kind of, you know, I'm at a loss for the word I want to say, but it's like a rupture. It's like a rupture from the inside. Okay, so that's my painting. And then this is what I ended up with. I've been keeping my journal pages really simple, you guys. And part of it is because I'm getting more zen in my journal pages. But to be super honest, it's also that I'm teaching 5 classes and I'm not spending quite as much time. Like if we were in class together and I had the full 3 hours, I would probably use it for this, but I'm keeping mine really, really simple. You can do that if you want, but I also want you to, you know, feel free to embellish and add a lot more images and a lot more anything that you want. But you can see this pretty texture on the bronze, and you can also a little bit in this photograph see the iridescent quality. My photograph got cut off a little bit down here, but it says two with nature. It's a couple together in nature. So I don't have my answers written down, but I'm going to try to model my sharing now. Like that wasn't my share. So this is me modeling the journal share that I want you to do today. Who or what has been hurt? My sense of myself as a source of goodness has been hurt. What must be made right? That I give myself permission to rest, to be honored, and to surf new adventures, and to be at one with myself in nature, and have my heart open to share that with others. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. And
Carissa, can you put your picture back, please? I'm sorry. I didn't get a photo.
oh, sure. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we, maybe we'll just leave this up while I lead the guided meditation, okay?
Okay,
So
thank
we're
you.
gonna- Sure. And actually, I didn't mute you guys. I'm going to mute you all for the meditation, okay? And then, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to lead you through the guided meditation. And then at the end of that, we'll allow a couple of minutes of silence for you to jot down any impressions or images or anything that comes up, or take a bathroom break or get a glass of water, whatever you need to do. And then we'll come back to share last week's, to ask any questions about, actually, let's just go right into journal sharing from last week's anger pages when we come back. And so when we come back, you're all going to be muted. So just remember, if you want to speak up, you'll have to unmute yourselves. We'll do that. And then when we're done with that, then we'll have our group share at the end. So just
Chris, it's Catherine. Are you going to give us the prompts again at the end, or you just said them?
yeah, I mean, I did email them to you, but I can give them to you.
Oh, okay. I didn't check my emails today, so thank
Well,
you.
they were with, oh, I'm sorry. Well, so no, this is for the shame and the guilt for next week. You guys are dealing with the anger. Do you need those?
No. I'm just saying the prompts that are going to go with the shame and guilt. You just said them, but are you going to re-say them, or should I write that down now?
Well, I am going to be emailing that info with the link to the video.
Okay, thank you.
But I can also repeat them verbally if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just put them in the chat.
Okay, I'll write them in the chat. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, somebody did. Josie did.
Oh,
okay. Thank you. Who's been hurt?
Who or what has been hurt? What must be made right?
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Alrighty. So let's make sure everybody's muted. All right. So let's settle in for our meditation, you guys. Get in whatever comfortable position is best for you, where you're feeling fully supported and you're able to just receive that support of the chair beneath you. And you can close your eyes and start to turn your attention inward. And take some deep, full breaths into your belly. And drop your mind, all your mental activity, your thinking, down into your heart. And breathe into your heart space of love. And now drop all that heart love energy down into your lower belly. And breathe into that watery realm. And just do a conscious scan from the crown of your head all the way down to your toes. Just briefly go through and take note of any areas of tension and consciously relax any muscles or any holding that you might come across. All the while taking nice, big, full, deep belly breaths. As you inhale, your belly expands like a big balloon. And as it exhales, it comes back towards your spine. Now try to bring your awareness to the inside of your abdomen, kind of the inside of your belly solar plexus. So you're inside there. And you've got this container of goodness that you reside in, where you have an internal honor system that keeps you in your truth, that monitors your actions, not in a super ego, judgmental or critical, harsh, fearful way, but one that allows you to stay aligned with your divine nature and allows you to feel yourself, your very core, as a source of goodness that nourishes you and fills you up so that you have no needs for any kind of affirmation or validation from the outer world. When you are in this space, there's an inherent satisfaction in your thoughts and actions because they are aligned with goodness. So allow yourself to just breathe into this inner shell, this inner egg inside of your original divine nature of goodness and joy. And allow that to nourish your entire being. Now bring to mind an incident that brought up a sense of shame in you. And this can either be an actual guilty act or guilty thought or guilty words that you spoke, that you felt shameful and remorseful about. Or it can be a falsely imposed shame that was put upon you by someone else in the outer world, where they labeled you or diminished you or said something or did something that made you feel wrong, even though you weren't. So either one of those situations or scenarios. And allow that wave of shame to wash over the rupture of the shame. And now ask yourself, who or what has been hurt? And what must be made right? And allow these insights or answers to come forth. And notice how cleansing this is to that inner space. How washing away that yucky shame and making it right brightens that inner flame again, allowing you to go out into the world shiny and bright and filled with the goodness that is at your core. So just breathe this in, and I'm going to let you sit with this for a couple minutes, and we'll resume shortly.